With the big telephone company, for caller ID, call blocking, call forwarding, call waiting, and three-way calling, you can end up paying almost $50 a month for all that. But with Rev Voice, you get all those features for free.
Lee Alfred Gray tells another MP to go to hell and meet him at the right place. We've got the details. Hear what the opposition leader says about all that. Parliament to vote on the 4 gender equality bills next Wednesday. Plus, the Prime Minister pays a special visit to the school of the girl behind Red Nose Day. We've got those stories and a lot more coming up tonight. I'm Kyle Joaquin, and NE12 starts now. Talking news tonight, things got very heated in the House of Assembly last evening after Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andrew Rollins brought up yet again allegations that Michael MP V. Alfred Gray interfered in the course of justice last year. What started out as just Rollins hitting out at Gray for those allegations quickly turned into Gray saying that Rollins could go to hell and him telling the young MP to meet him at the right place whenever he's ready. All this as other parliamentarians looked on.
And a member of the executive is able to pick up his phone and berate that sitting magistrate and tell him to release the person who was convicted and sentenced to prison. What you are doing is interfering with the judicial process.
Rollins used that as an example of how he said the executive doesn't respect the separation of powers in the country. He was speaking of March of last year when Gray said he merely told Mayaguana's island administrator, who was the acting magistrate, that he had the power to grant bail when an appeal is lodged to a conviction. The matter was probed by police and handed over to the Attorney General, who later determined that no one should face criminal charges. But after Gray had defended himself in Parliament earlier...
How could you have a member of the executive remain in the executive while they're deciding on a fate of his own in relation to charges of judicial interference? The least that he should have done was to ask to be removed from the cabinet until such time as that matter was dealt with.
What Gray did at that time, though, was write the Prime Minister asking that he be relieved of his portfolio as Minister responsible for local government, to which the Prime Minister agreed. But as you can imagine, Rollins' rant didn't sit too well with the Michael MP, who sits directly across from the Fort Charlotte MP. He said Rollins could only be trying to prove his loyalty to the FNM.
The member for Fort Charlotte who is singing for his supper. He wants to show the FNM that he was worthy of joining them. And I understand what he's trying to do, but don't use me to do it.
Gray, who was visibly agitated by Rollins' comment, said the matter was looked into by the police, who found no evidence to support the allegation.
See, Mr. Speaker, they didn't get the result they wanted. I understand that. They didn't get the result, but blame the police then, not me. I never investigated anything.
Blame the police.
But they didn't know. You didn't like what the police found. That's your problem.
But things got a bit more heated, referencing the infamous slap Rollins received in Parliament from Long Island MP Loretta Butler Turner 2 years ago. Gray took his defense a bit further.
I don't want to be drawn into anything. See, when women could slap you down and get away with it, it turns your head upside down.
Caution member.
It turns you into a fool.
Gray said he knows Rollins may have lost a screw after what he called the heavyweight slap, but he won't allow the MP to besmirch his character in any way. Still, Gray wasn't done.
He could go to hell, Mr. Speaker, in a wastebasket.
Thank you.
The Michael MP said it isn't fair that anything that happens could constantly be brought up over and over, and asked House Speaker Dr. Kendall Major to protect him from such comments being made. However, after listening to Rollins shout from across the floor, Gray dropped one more line.
I knew I need to lose a little screw, but I want to meet him at the right place.
Thank you.
Join me.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Join me whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
With your little slack
Members. Order. Okay, members. A member for Fort Charlotte.
When he took his seat, Gray could be seen holding his fist up in the air, showing it to Rollins, who sits directly across from him. The House Speaker then ordered that Rollins drop the topic and continue debate on the Bail Amendment Act. Well, Opposition Leader Dr. Hubert Minnis said Agriculture Minister Viafra Gray told an untruth to Parliament last night when he said he never called Island Administrator Zephaniah Newbold regarding any case he was presiding over as acting magistrate. This after Gray previously admitted to the media he did call Newbold to inform him of his right to grant bail in a specific case. Pointing to that, Minnis said Gray's account yesterday was completely different from what he said initially, labeling it a fabrication and an attempt to come with a different story. Dana Smith reports.
Gray found himself at the center of a judicial interference investigation last year after he, in a phone interview with our news team, confirmed he spoke with Newbold to inform him he could grant bail to a convicted man. But in the House of Assembly last night, Gray told a different story. He said he never called Newbold regarding any case. He said he only asked if an injured man would be allowed to see a doctor. But Minnis labeled Gray's comment totally incorrect and untrue.
Because he had called the administrator, and in fact, it's quoted in the daily newspaper, where he called and he said to the administrator, who is his employee, because remember the administrator fell under his administration, under his ministry. He informed the administrator that once an appeal is in process, then you can grant bail. That's interference. That's interference. And that's what was done.
Minnis said what Gray said yesterday is completely different from what he told the media when the issue was first brought to light, and he accused Gray of trying to send a different message. When asked, although he stopped shy of accusing Gray of misleading Parliament, Minnis said his words were a fabrication.
You can say whatever you want to call them. I said it's untrue. It was fabrication. The statement that he made was untrue. The facts are there to show.
Minnis said maybe Gray is hoping the Bahamian people had forgotten what happened, but the facts speak for themselves.
I don't know. Maybe he's hoping that the Bahamian people had forgotten and subsequently come with a different story, and the Bahamian people would buy that one. You know, there's an old saying that a story runs for 7 days and then move on to another. 7 days had passed, so presumably hoping that they've forgotten, and therefore you give another story and they would agree or accept the other story. But Bahamian, we're dealing with a different generation. We're dealing with a digital era.
Minnis said people are different now than yesterday, explaining all it takes is a simple internet search to find out the truth.
We're dealing with a digital era. They will go, they will Google, and they will search, and they will find what you said. And they will find that you spoke to your employee, who was a magistrate acting in that capacity. You spoke to your employee and said to your employee that once an individual is applied for, once an appeal process is in place, then you have the power to grant bail. What are you telling your employee?
Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.
Former Progressive Liberal Party Cabinet Minister George Smith suggested that he does not fully agree with the Supreme Court decision to release 2 Cuban men at the center of public debate, saying he agrees that they pose a national security risk to the country. Simone Davis has the story.
The former cabinet minister said he understands that the government has no choice but to keep the Cubans in the country while seeking a third country for them. He would much rather them be kept behind bars in the meantime and not be given any type of status to remain in the country or be let loose on society.
Certainly you have to let them stay here until you solve the problem, but I don't know that you need to give them any status other than the fact that they are in this country illegally, and the process of dealing with illegal people or finding some other place to take them, whatever time it takes, well, it must take that time. But I don't believe that we should let them loose in this society. We have concerns about their security risks. We know at least one of them was involved in criminal activity in the United States, and we shouldn't be releasing people with criminal records on the Bahamian society. So they should be detained by order of the court. I'm sure that could be gotten, until we find a third country.
After Carlos Pupo and Lazaro Marin were released last week, Mitchell expressed that he did not want the men released because they pose as a national security risk. Their attorney Fred Smith shot back, accusing Mitchell of cowardly attacks on defenseless private citizens. The attorney also branded Mitchell a danger to democracy and a political disgrace. Mitchell fired back at his critics yesterday in the House of Assembly, including the Nassau Guardian's managing editor Candia Dames and Free National Movement chairman Michael Pintard. Mitchell said he pities them all and they must have sad lives. George Smith said the squabble between Smith and Mitchell is definitely insignificant and the government should focus more on its next move in dealing with the Cubans.
The squabble between the two Freds is whereas it grabs the headline, is really insignificant in terms of dealing with the problem. And it is insignificant compared with the other problems we need to address in this country. We've got to get serious about some other things that is far more important, whether these two fellas have this wrangling over two illegals.
However, Smith expressed that he's confident the government would find a third country to adopt the migrants and recommended that Christie attempt to further negotiate with the United States of America to take the men back to where they came from.
Based on all the publicity that is given, the concern raised about the security issue, they ought not be permitted to remain here. But I am confident that the Bahamas government and with the cooperation of the United States will find a third country, and this matter will be dealt with effectively.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Simone Davis.
Well, it turns out the new location for fruit and vegetable vendors at Potter's Key Dock is still not ready, even though they were told last Friday it was supposed to be the last day to occupy stalls located directly under the Paradise Island exit bridge. Giorgio Bain has the latest on that story.
Most of the fruit and vegetable stalls here under the Potter's Key Dock are officially closed as the vendors await their transfer to their new location.
During their protest, vendors said they were told to take their stalls home with them. However, Minister of Agriculture V. Alfred Gray said he is preparing a place at the western side of the dock for them. Although Friday was supposed to be the last day for fruit and vegetable vendors to be present under the bridge, today a few of them could still be seen selling their goods.
We're supposed to be moving like next week. We have a daytime to 7 next week, but we ain't heard from our president yet to tell us what we're going to do or not. But most likely, we will be moving over next week sometime. It is not big enough, because if you notice, you see have a double stall, and the section where they have over there is very small. Very, very small.
That's good though, just like I tell you, better with nothing, you know. I don't want to sit down home to stay home, you know, sit down, you don't do nothing. Since you're over there, you could make a little something, you know. That's better with nothing.
Two of the fish and conch vendors located to the front of the dock are still up in arms as they have gotten no word so far as to when their last day to be open will be, even though they have been told that they must definitely move to allow construction to continue.
We don't know exactly what's really going to happen, what's going on, when it's going to happen, you know, but like I say, it's just like, to me, it's just like a big secret because nobody knows what's going on. Now you can see the construction going on around you, but then again, you're smack in the middle. You don't know when it's your turn. You know, and I feel it's very sad. You know, we don't know exactly when we didn't get no letter to find out when we're gonna move and nothing like that. All we hear is just gossip, and it's very sad that you know, the people who was ahead of it isn't coming forward and saying exactly when we're going to move, what time we're going to move. You know, so like I say, it's a sitting duck, just waiting.
Calls to the minister about this issue were not returned. Vendors say they are still awaiting the new location's completion. Reporting for NB12, I'm Giorgio Bain.
When NB12 returns, parliamentarians to vote on the 4 gender equality bills. Stay tuned.